Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. I started off to do this earlier and it didn't really come out complete, but this is entitled Justice for Black People is Not the White House's Problem, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And so here you see in the root, police shooting and killing Black men. It's not the White House's problem, Sarah Huckabee Sanders says. So, it's not just coming from me, it's not fake news. So, according to this article, and according to Fox News and some of the other local news stations in California, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, police shooting and killing Black men, it's not the White House's problem. So this article is in the root, and it's written by a Monique Judge. And this photo here underneath is the wake of Stephon Clark. So Stephon Clark shot and gunned down and murdered by police in Sacramento. Stephon Clark was shot 8 times, primarily in his back. His family ordered an autopsy to find out what really happened. So they had a private person or a doctor to do the investigation. So the first article I had was more about what are we going to do about this incidents, all these incidents. So on March 18, 2 police officers in Sacramento, California, shot and killed 22-year-old Stephon Clark in his backyard of his grandparents' home. So it is not the first extrajudicial execution of a Black man by police. And if there is no change soon, it likely won't be the last. The nation is watching the aftermath of the shooting play out, and understandably, many of us have questions for both local and national government leaders as to what if or will anything be done to prevent something like this from ever happening again. And so if you can see, there's a little photo of Stephon Clark when he was alive. So on Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders, aka Suckabee, was asked if the White House had any response to the public outcry for justice in the shooting of Black men and women at the hands of police. So Sanders' statement was, "This is something that is a local matter, and that's something that we feel should be left up to local authorities at this point in time," adding that the president is in full support of law enforcement. "It is incredibly troubling, but not at all surprising." And so that the president doesn't find this issue important enough to address himself. Black bodies have never been anything more than utility for labor and abuse in this country. We have always been seen as less than. Donald Trump's appointed Attorney General Jeff Sessions has gone out of his way to make it evident that he cares more about the protection of law enforcement officers rather than he does about people they are tasked to police. So the fact concerned about the current state of affairs where an officer can just say, "I was afraid for my life," in order to be exonerated in killing or murdering a citizen. So there needs to be a federal investigation into every police shooting like this, or like these ones that have been reoccurring. But that won't happen at this point in time because our government simply doesn't care. So Black people are not important enough for it to make a big deal. It goes on to say for the White House to respond to the sad height of immoral analysis. The White House's statement is at best ignorant and the worst at worst neglectfully dismissive. So families mourning the loss of loved ones in Sacramento, Baton Rouge, Ferguson, St. Paul, North Charleston, Staten Island, North Charleston, Staten Island, Baltimore, Tulsa, and other communities are primarily communities of African American or Black peoples, or poor peoples, or people who maybe if they're not poor, they just happen to not be white, or they're not important. No matter what color they just are not important enough. We can lump them in as well. That's the way they view it. Studies have shown that the Black people are killed by police at rates disproportionately to the composition of the U.S. population. So this is shameful and intentional embarrassment. So enough is enough. We're tired and we want justice. I am not at all hopeful that we will get it because neither the White House, the president and attorney general, nor the elected officials give a damn about Black people, period. And so this is Monique Judge, the Root After Dark columnist, and she's a news writer for the Root. And I said what I said, period. So this is a photo of her, and she's the author of this article. And so there's been a whole lot of articles about the autopsy that has been done. I believe the doctor's name is Dr. Bennett. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to look. So Stephon Clark was shot 8 times. So they had another autopsy. The family had another person come in and do the autopsy. And so Stephon Clark, the unarmed Black man who was fatally shot last week by Sacramento police officers, was struck 8 times, mostly in his back, according to the independent autopsy released Friday, raising significant questions about the police account that he was a threat to officers when he was hit. So the autopsy commission by the family of Mr. Clark, 22, conducted by a Dr. Bennett, Amalu, a private medical examiner, who showed that he was shot 3 times in his lower back, twice near the right shoulder, and once in his neck and under his armpit. And so he was also shot in the leg. The neck wound was from the side, and the doctor found that he had said that while the shot to the leg hit Mr. Clark in the front, it appeared to have been fired after he was already falling. And so he already fell and he was being shot again. That doesn't sound very good, does it? At all. None of this does. It actually seems more deliberate, is what this autopsy is proving from just hearing it. So that's in my opinion. I'm putting that in there, ad-libbing. So he was shot from the back. Dr. Amalu said Friday at the news conference. So standing next to the diagrams that he had drawn up showing the gun wounds and at which direction they came, he described severe damage to Mr. Clark's body, including a shattered vertebrae and a collapsed lung and the arm broken into tiny bits. So just hearing that is horrible. So he bled massively, Dr. Amalu said. So he said that he believed that the first bullet that hit Clark on the side caused him to turn so that he was facing away from the officers when they fired the barrage of bullets, meaning a whole lot of bullets. So then the Sacramento police on Friday said that they had not viewed the autopsy and declined to comment, saying it was inappropriate because the investigation was ongoing. So we acknowledge the importance of the case to all our community, the police said in the statement. And so the protesters of California's capital have taken to the streets nearly every day since Mr. Clark was killed on March 18th, demanding the city's leadership fire the 2 officers that were involved in the shooting. So Mr. Clark's family has decided that to the conducts, it's to conduct their own autopsy. So that's why they hired the private investigator or a private autopsy doctor. So the video showed the officers shouting at Mr. Clark minutes after, "If you're okay, we need to know if you're okay." That's what was stated in the video by the officer. So the officer yelled the 3 minutes after the gunfire had ended, "We need to get you medics, but we can't go over to get you help unless we know you don't have a weapon." So Dr. Amalu said that the autopsy suggested Mr. Clark lived for 3 to 10 minutes after the shooting, adding to the questions about the amount of time it took to get him treatment. So medical assistance did not arrive until about 6 minutes after the shooting had occurred. So in its initial account, the police department said that Mr. Clark had advanced towards the officers while holding what they believed was a firearm, which was in fact a cell phone. I guess cell phones are guns now. So that's my comment. But anyway, in a body camera footage provided by the police, however, it is not clear which direction Mr. Clark is facing, and the family's lawyers, Benjamin Crump, said that the independent autopsy contradicted the assertion by the police that he was a threat. And so I must have accidentally clicked off on something. So it just goes to show that this whole thing, I'm not even going to go further down in this article reading it. So that pretty much puts this whole situation in a very rough, tough spot. You know, provided that we know the statements of the White House and how they feel. And I'm going to leave it at this right here, this title right here. Like, comment, subscribe. Give me your thoughts, your feedback on this issue. I'm going to give you my opinion now. I feel that if nothing is done about this, it could get worse. And there could be an uprising. There could be some pushback and trust. There's major pushback already, but it's not de-escalating the issues to make things better. It's making things worse. To see these type of incidents happen so close together is what brings all of these suspicions, and which people thought in the beginning they were like conspiracies and just theories, and oh, it's just people that are crazy. They're making up their isolated incidences. They're happening very close together, back to back, and happening to a selected group, which happen to be Black people. And so, our African American, however you want to phrase the term, but it's happening to this particular group of individuals, in which I'm included in that group. And so I haven't been gunned down, but I am African American, or a Black person of color. So it raises a lot of red flags, a lot of concern when you see things like this continuously happen, and the excuses that they give is he reached for something. It almost seems like it's like we're waiting for that phrase. When it gets to the point where it's been said so many times, and it's like it's been staged. It's like they have a cue card and everybody's got that same cue card. They know how to read it. They know what it says. They've all memorized it. Okay, if you screw up, if you don't like Black people and you're hard on Black people, and you fatally shoot a Black person and you know you're in the wrong, just say he was reaching for something. And that's the way this is coming off to us, is that it is staged. The comments that are coming out, that it's more, we're going to protect our officers rather than the citizens, or a certain select group of citizens will protect, but other citizens will turn that blind eye, or will turn our head to the chaos and mayhem and violence and injustice with this particular group, because we have like biases, we've stereotyped, we've ostracized them. We pretty much look at them as the lower end, less than type class of folks. And so whatever happens to them is their fault. Everything, it's easy to blame it on the people who are being oppressed or victimized rather than people hold themselves accountable for their actions on what they're doing, whether it be negligence in law enforcement. People are not really following the letter of the law correctly, or it's just plain outright. Could be a mix of things. It could be just maybe they have their own biases about particular groups of people they're policing in communities. And so they've already have it fixed ways in their minds to view certain people. So they profile them and treat them differently as such. And so that's how this is coming off to people of color, is that it's pretty much, they have that cue card in their brain that if we shoot a Black person, just say he was reaching for something, or she was reaching, or she was coming at me. We're hearing those same phrases over and over again for each thing. Well, it looked like a gun. How can a cell phone, the way it's shaped, look like a gun? That's just ridiculous. So that is how this is coming off. Give your feedback, your comments. We always hear this stuff about how Black people are violent and Black people kill each other. It's easy to say those things when you're not the one being gunned down, or your family's not the one being impacted, or your group of people are not impacted by the same types of killings and injustices such as people of color are facing right now. And so this article, if you just are looking, is police shooting and killing Black men. It's not the White House's problem, according to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And so I read this article, and if you want to look at this article, it's in the Root. And so she mentioned this on national TV, and the world is watching this. And it's sad because it says that we're not mattering. We don't count. And for her to add in here, so let me go back to the statement. What this says to us is that you don't care about Black people, that we're not important enough. Our lives are not important enough for you to intervene in these type of circumstances, is what you're saying. And so it is incredibly troubling, but not at all surprising that the president doesn't find this issue important enough to address. Black bodies have never been anything more than utility for labor and abuse in this country. We have always been seen as less than. So Donald Trump's appointed attorney, Jeff Sessions, has gone out of his way to make it evident that he cares more about the protection of law enforcement officers than he does people they are tasked to police. The fact is, every single American, regardless of race, creed, color, should be concerned about the current state of affairs, where all an officer has to say is, "I was afraid for my life," in order to be exonerated in the murder or killing of a citizen. And so that is very scary. It can go and spin out of control very quickly, very, very quickly. And the statement that she made, she added that Donald Trump is in support of law enforcement. And so she added that. It was like a specific phrase where she added that in there. As like, their lives actually are more important. So you see a sign here, it says "Convict Killer Cops." And so it's like, it's sad. It's as if people are being picked off one by one. There's article after article on the left here, Stephen Clark independent autopsy shows police shot him 8 times and 6 in the back. Stephen Clark funeral service wrought with emotion honors a young man taken too soon. Sacramento, California Police Department, they are no angels. So it sounds like that in Sacramento, there's been a history of racial profiling from the looks of it. And there's a lot of injustice, but it seems like that has happened in most places when it involves Black people. And this is what we're seeing all over the country. And so we want answers. We want to know, why is it that it's important for you to spend more time worrying about the lives of officers who murder Black people just because they thought they seen something in the shape of a gun? It turns out to be a cell phone, or they thought somebody was reaching for something and they were reaching for their wallet to get their ID, or reaching for a phone to call someone to come help them because they're afraid. If somebody resists or they run, they're afraid. Black people are afraid of the police because we've been seeing Black people getting killed. And so some people are going to wait and they're going to stop. They're going to hold their hands up, and others are not, because they're in fear of their lives. They're afraid they're going to be gunned down. So they might have that fight flight reaction to either stay and try to deal with the circumstance, or run because of previous videos, previous articles, previous news outlets that show these incidents happening very close to one another. And so it's just a sad situation, and it just seems like it's never ending, and there's no end in sight. And so they did, however, in Baton Rouge, the officer was fired in the Alton Sterling case. And so they released that. And I think the reason why they released that, and they re-investigated that, they looked at that again because of the uproar about what happened in Sacramento. I think that's one thing, because it's happening so close together and a lot of people are starting to ask questions. You know, it is happening back to back. People who aren't even Black are seeing this, and they are knowing, hey, what's up with all of this? And so you see this Baton Rouge officer is fired in the Alton Sterling case as the police release new videos and footage of what happened with that. And so a lot of times these officers were covering up, these bad officers that were doing this were covering up their crimes. And they, it was an act of like total abuse of their badge and the law to stretch their authority and to muscle and hustle people to the ground and basically kill and pick off people whom they maybe in their own bias they don't even view them as people. They view them as maybe thugs or animals or not even human, because they happen to be a person of color or Black. So this is the sentiment that we've been getting. We've been seeing this happen over and over again, and we want answers. We're tired of it. And it's gotten to the point to where this is more than a local matter. It is, I'm saying that. It's more than a local matter. It is not just a local matter. It is a national matter. And it's becoming far too often the thing we see week after week after week. And we want answers. When we're hearing about people covering up things, it doesn't build trust. When there's officers trying to make up stories to try to find an alibi as to why, or justify the validity of why they murdered a Black person and cover up, and they make up these elaborate stories, and then we in fact find out that it isn't true what they said. There's more footage, or they threw some evidence out, before the body cameras. It was really crazy, but it was happening the same. It was happening just the same. It seems like it's happening even more now that they're on camera. It's almost like they're getting bold with this, like to say, we're gonna be able to walk where the law is always always right, you know, in the eyes of, you know, the administration that we're under right now. So um, like, comment, subscribe, give your feedback on this issue. It really is sad. And I feel that if nothing is done about this soon, that it could create a lot of anger, even more so to the point to where people totally lose trust in law enforcement altogether. And that's pretty much this whole article and the other one in one video. So it just doesn't get any better. It doesn't. And for somebody to say, to interject that in their voice, they're saying, we are on the side of the law, as if it's almost like they don't want to hear what you got to say. They don't want to go and do a second investigation. They don't care about, you know, well, what if, you know, or what if this person is not being honest? They don't want to hear the other side of the story. They want to hear a one-sided story where it's just the law enforcement telling their side of the story, but you don't hear the other people's end of it. You don't hear their concerns and their frustrations and how they feel about it. And so this is where it is really, really getting to the point to where when you just shut everybody out and you don't want to hear any other side to the story, when we're now seeing what just happened to Alton Sterling, when they showed another video or viewed another video, they saw what happened and they had to fire that officer. I think they need to go back, and all of those people who were gunned down by the police officers that they've been killed by or murdered by, they need to not suspend the officers. They need to do the same thing they did in the Alton Sterling case. They need to fire them. That's my opinion. Like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.